Imagine yourself walking those narrow cobblestone streets just as the sun dips below the horizon. The air grows chillier and whispers of a terrifying presence. The medieval monster of Florence drift through the marketplace and taverns. Hey guys, tonight we step back in time to the dark streets and winding alleys of medieval Florence, a city famed for its art and culture, but also a place where shadows held secrets far darker than any painting. This isn't a modern detective thriller, but the raw, brutal reality of a city gripped by fear centuries before forensic science or police detectives existed. You probably won't survive a night in 14th century Florence if you cross this mysterious figure's path whose brutal acts unsettled a whole city and left a mark on history. This story blends fact, legend, and some eyebrow-raising medieval quirks you didn't expect. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. Let's see where in the world you're joining from tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Medieval Florence was a city of splendor and shadows. Known for its towering cathedrals and thriving markets, it was also a place where the boundaries between faith, superstition, and law blurred. You walk past artisans hammering away, merchants shouting over their stalls, and suddenly the mood shifts. There's talk of a shadowy figure, a killer whose grisly crimes have turned the city's quiet nights into a chorus of fear. Historians tell us that this monster preyed mostly on couples, found in secluded places, victims of horrific violence. The city lacked the organized law enforcement we know today. Investigations were crude, often mingled with superstition. People clung to faith, believing the killer might be a demon or a cursed soul. But who was this medieval murderer? Was he one man or a myth grown from the city's fears? We'll explore all this and more. Historians still argue whether the monster of Florence was a single person or a legend born from collective anxiety. You might think medieval killers lacked method, but chillingly, this figure left a haunting pattern that echoes through the ages, foreshadowing what we now call serial killers. Tonight, you'll walk the shadowy path of Florence's darkest secret. Ready? Let's go. You slip deeper into the streets as whispers grow louder. The monster of Florence, as chronicled centuries later, wasn't just a random criminal, but a figure whose crimes rattled the social fabric of medieval Tuscany. His attacks typically targeted couples found alone in the countryside or on the outskirts of town. Romantic rendezvous turned nightmarish scenes. Imagine a time when lovers dared to steal moments away from watchful eyes, only to be caught in the grip of fear. The medieval world viewed such clandestine meetings with suspicion, often condemning them morally before any killer ever struck. Yet the violence here was far beyond the common moral judgments of the era. It was calculated, brutal, and chillingly consistent. The bodies were discovered mutilated in ways that defied simple explanation, often bearing strange marks or arrangements. This led some townsfolk to whisper of dark magic or curses, while others feared the monster was a man possessed by demons. In a society deeply entwined with religion, such explanations held weight. But let's pause and consider the practical side, the investigation. Law enforcement as we know it was non-existent. Instead, magistrates relied on local militias and neighborhood watch groups. When the monster struck, these groups scrambled to piece together clues. Sometimes, terrified witnesses offered testimonies clouded by fear and superstition, leading to accusations against innocent neighbors. The medieval courts tried a few suspects, often poorly, with scant evidence and a rush to judgment. Torture was a common method used to extract confessions, but whether it revealed truth or simply quelled public panic is a subject historians still debate. You might wonder, how did such a figure avoid capture for so long? The answer lies partly in the era's limitations. Poor lighting, lack of communication, and rugged terrain provided the killer with many hiding places. Plus, societal taboos meant many victims' families kept quiet, fearing scandal more than justice. In this shadowy world, the monster of Florence became a legend, not just a man, but a symbol of the city's darkest fears and unresolved horrors. Historians still argue whether the monster was a real person, a group of criminals, or simply a myth that grew from the city's anxieties. So you trudge on, through alleys thick with fog, the echo of distant bells ringing for the dead. Stay close. The story only deepens. You find yourself near the rugged countryside where many of the monster's victims were discovered. These shadowed fields and dense woods, on the edges of Florence's reach, were both a lover's secret and a killer's playground. The silence here is thick, broken only by the rustle of leaves or the distant howl of wolves. It's easy to imagine how someone could disappear into these woods and never be found. Medieval travelers spoke of these areas with a mix of awe and fear. They were considered wild and untamed, places where law held little sway and superstition. The victims themselves were often young couples caught in these lonely spots. It was said that the monster waited patiently, striking with brutal precision. These weren't random acts of violence. They were deliberate, almost ritualistic. Some scholars speculate that the killer was driven by a twisted sense of morality, punishing those who defied social norms by meeting in secret. One of the most chilling aspects was the killer's ability to vanish without a trace, leaving the victims' bodies as grim messages. Local lore sometimes describes strange symbols carved near the crime scenes, though historians debate whether these were real marks or later additions by storytellers. Some even suggested the involvement of secret cults or supernatural forces, but such claims remain unproven and are often dismissed as medieval fantasy. You might wonder how anyone survived or escaped this menace. There are scattered accounts of lovers who fled at the last moment or villagers who spotted suspicious figures lurking near the forests. These tales, however, are few and far between, overshadowed by the fear that gripped Florence. The monster of Florence became not only a menace but a mirror reflecting the city's deepest anxieties about love, secrecy, and danger lurking just beyond the lights. Historians still argue whether the killer was a lone individual, a group, or a myth fueled by fear and the unknown. As you tread carefully among the gnarled trees, the cold wind seems to whisper forgotten secrets. Keep your wits about you. The night is far from over. The city itself, nestled along the Arno River, buzzes with a nervous energy. Word of the monster's deeds spreads like wildfire through the narrow, cobbled streets, winding past bustling markets and quiet chapels. Florence in the Middle Ages was a city of contrast, rich merchants flaunting their wealth, humble artisans crafting beauty, and the ever-present shadow of political intrigue lurking just beneath the surface. You wander through the marketplace where merchants hawk their wares, the smells of fresh bread and spiced wine mingling in the air. Yet beneath this lively veneer, fear simmers. Lovers are cautious, clutching hands in the daylight, but avoiding the dark paths once the sun sets. Mothers hush their children, whispering warnings of the lurking danger outside the city walls. Law enforcement here is a patchwork of city guards, local militias, and a labyrinth of informants. Without modern forensics or reliable communication, every lead is a whisper and every suspect a potential scapegoat. The authorities often find themselves hamstrung by politics and superstition, struggling to balance justice with the public's mounting panic. The city's elite, including wealthy families and clergy, are particularly concerned. Rumors swirl of secret meetings and conspiracies, some blaming rivals or foreign agents for stirring unrest. Others whisper that the monster is a manifestation of divine wrath or a punishment for the city's sins. Yet, amidst the chaos, the people of Florence cling to routines. Daily prayers, festivals, and gatherings continue, albeit with a shadow hanging over each joyful moment. It's this tension between normalcy and terror that gives the Monster of Florence story its haunting grip. You pause at a street corner where a storyteller spins a chilling tale, weaving the monster into Florence's lore. Such stories were the medieval version of news headlines, part warning, part entertainment, part collective memory. Historians still debate whether the monster was a real person or an exaggerated symbol born of Florence's fears and rivalries. As dusk falls, the city's lamps flicker on, casting long shadows. The line between light and dark blurs, much like the truth behind the monster. Keep your eyes sharp and your heart steady. The night is restless. You find yourself drawn to the courtrooms and council chambers where whispers of the monster echo in hushed tones. Here, justice is a delicate dance, entwined with politics, power, and the precarious balance of medieval law. Trials are public spectacles, held in stone halls where echoes of accusations and pleas bounce off ancient walls. The accused often face grim fates, but evidence is scarce and heavily reliant on witness testimony, which can be as fickle as the Florentine wind. Accusations sometimes seem more about settling old scores than seeking truth, and the city's elite wield influence that can sway verdicts. It's said that fear can cloud judgment, and in the monster's case, paranoia runs rampant. The monster case becomes a symbol of the city's struggle between lawlessness and order, fear and courage. Some magistrates push for harsher laws, while others call for calm and reason. You overhear a debate about the nature of evil itself, whether it is born or made, whether monsters walk among us or hide within. Interestingly, the monsters' killings coincide with political upheaval, leading some to speculate a connection. Could the monster be a pawn in a greater game, or merely a scapegoat for the city's deeper wounds? On a lighter note, there are curious tales of local healers and wise women who claim to protect lovers with charms or spells, trying to keep the monster at bay. Their blend of herbal remedies and whispered prayers reflects a world where magic and medicine often walk hand in hand. Historians still argue whether the monster was a political tool, a real killer, or a myth born from Florence's anxieties. As you leave the courthouse behind, the weight of the city's fears hangs heavy in the air. Remember, in times of darkness, stories become our way of seeking light. Stepping beyond the city walls, you venture into the surrounding countryside where the monster's shadow truly lingers. These rolling hills and tangled forests hide countless secrets, and the locals' tales deepen the mystery. Farmers whisper of strange sightings and unexplainable noises echoing through the night, while shepherds avoid certain paths, wary of the unseen threat. The landscape itself seems to conspire with fear. Thick mists curl through the trees, and ancient ruins, remnants of forgotten civilizations, stand as silent witnesses. It's easy to imagine the monster slipping through these shadows, blending with the natural gloom. The victims' bodies were often found in these remote places, arranged with a chilling precision that suggests ritual. Some say the monster was inspired by old pagan beliefs, performing grisly acts to appease or mock forgotten gods. Others believe it was a methodical mind at work, using the landscape to confuse pursuers. A fringe theory holds that the monster was connected to a secret society operating in the hills, a brotherhood that sought to control Florence through fear. While this sounds like a medieval thriller, some scholars take these rumors seriously, examining clues in obscure manuscripts and local legends. Yet, despite the terror, the countryside also offers moments of fragile beauty. Early dawn reveals dew-soaked fields and birdsong, a stark contrast to the night's dread. This duality mirrors Florence itself, a city of art and shadow, love and fear. Historians still debate whether the monster's rural haunt was chosen for practical reasons or symbolic meaning. As you walk these paths, the past feels close, tangled in every root and stone. The story of the monster is woven into the land itself, a haunting legacy waiting for those who dare to listen. Returning to Florence, you find yourself among the people, the common folk who lived in the cramped quarters, the artisans hammering away in noisy workshops, and the children darting through alleyways. It's here, in the heart of everyday life, that the monster story takes on a deeply human face. You overhear conversations in taverns where weary workers sip watered wine and share nervous laughs about the latest sightings. The monster has become a figure both feared and oddly legendary, a shadow stalking their dreams and waking hours alike. Some believe the monster was a man scorned, others a twisted soul born of the city's own darkness. Folk tales mix with fact, creating a tapestry of fear, fascination, and folklore. Songs and poems emerge, sung softly by minstrels in the market square, offering a strange comfort, a way to process collective trauma. A quirky local story tells of a baker who claimed to have once scared off the monster with nothing but a rolling pin and a loaf of stale bread. Whether true or not, it adds a touch of humor to the grim narrative, a reminder that even in dark times, people find ways to laugh. Historians still argue whether the monster was one individual or a string of copycats feeding off each other's infamy. You sense the city's pulse, its resilience, its complexity. The monster is more than a killer. It's a reflection of Florence's soul, its fears, its struggles, and its unyielding hope. As twilight descends, you feel the weight of stories yet untold, of truths buried beneath centuries of shadow. As your journey nears its end, you ponder the aftermath of the monster's reign of terror. Florence slowly emerges from the shadows, healing in the light of peace and time. The city's leaders implement reforms, strengthening patrols and improving justice, while the people seek solace in art, faith, and community. Memorials and simple shrines appear near the sites where victims were found, a somber acknowledgement of lives lost and lessons learned. The monster becomes a cautionary tale, whispered from parent to child, a grim reminder of vigilance and the fragility of safety. Curiously, some claim that the monster vanished not by capture, but by the city's own resilience, the collective will to refuse fear its hold. Legends grow, hinting at secret pacts and shadowy deals that ensured silence, but no evidence confirms such tales. Artisans craft intricate works inspired by the dark chapter, blending horror and hope in stunning frescoes and delicate manuscripts. You can almost feel the city's heartbeat in these creations, pain transformed into beauty. Historians still debate whether the monster was a single individual, a symbol, or a myth born from Florence's tumultuous times. As night falls, you reflect on the human spirit, its capacity for darkness and for light, for fear and for courage. The story of the Monster of Florence is not just about a killer, it's a timeless saga of survival, identity, and the stories we tell to make sense of the unknown. You close this chapter of history, carrying its lessons softly into your dreams. Sweet dreams.